Lizotte. G'day, mate. I'm Shane.
Thanks, Shane. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm really good. And I mean, I don't know if you're going to cut me off if I say this, but I knew you as Johnny Diesel, and I know you dropped that many years ago. Do you mind me saying
Yeah.
that?
Oh, look, the thing is that came from a band name that was actually named after the bass player.
Okay.
And it was never going to work that way because being in the middle of the stage, John Dalzell, which is where the joke came from, John
Right.
Dalzell, he's
Yep.
on the left, had Bernie on the right, something like that. And no one was ever going to think, oh, it must be named after the bass player. It's like, no, they just think that that's me because I'm in the middle of the stage singing the songs. So I had to go along with it. When I say had to, it was one of those conversations that we had with the management. And he was like, now, everyone thinks that's you. And, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I just wanted
Yeah.
to, get the band going. I was like, whatever it takes. But that name came about as a kind of a means to an end because we didn't have a name. And we'd all come from another band. And we were just playing like one night a week. At this point, we were playing Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday nights as like kind of therapy. We'd all been in this other band and it imploded. And we're like, well, let's do something, but we don't want to like commit, we just want to play.
Yeah.
And commitment would have meant having a name for the band and everything. We were just like this nameless band. And then a woman that was booking the little gig that we were doing, she was like, look, like, let's try to get you more people, like put a name in the paper and put your names underneath it to say who you are so they know. Because
Good idea.
yeah, you're pretty kind of well known in this town, from winning local awards and things like that. And, it was just one of those things to try to get more people. And then we saw it and was like, ha ha. And, John Dalzell, the bass player, like laughed and said, you guys are idiots. Because it all came about because his wife was about to have, found out she was pregnant again. And that's, little Johnny Diesel and these little injectors being his little family.
Right.
That was where it came from. So, if
I
I
didn't know
understand
that.
how people think that's me, but it's actually was never me. And so I've been like trying to get rid of it ever since I left that band and went solo, which is like 30 something years now.
Oh, easy.
And so I kept the Diesel because it was recognizable. And this whole thing of like, oh, you've changed your name so many times. It's like, well, no, I've only just did that. And then I made one record under my own name because my label in America were worried about the clothing company getting, up having a problem. And I'm like, I don't think they will because
Uh,
they've known about me for a while. And actually in Europe, they tried to, sponsor a tour once and they gave us all these free jackets and everything was like, cool.
is that right?
Thanks.
Cool.
So, I did that to appease them. And so, yeah, the one record that was under my name. And then I went back to being Diesel and I have been since 2001 or something. So, there really hasn't been that many changes, but I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, and people of our era, I saw you for the first time as Johnny Diesel and the Injectors, and that album cover, the red, was a
Yeah.
massive hit, and you're still singing songs from it. So it was
Yeah. Yeah.
an
Look,
era you're not part of now, but you really have
absolutely.
embraced.
No, it was a good album to kind of kick things off,
Yeah,
definitely. And I wrote that record most of the songs, not entirely, but most of the record I wrote while I was stuck in America. I wouldn't say stuck, but I kind of was. I was broke, and I was staying in my sister's place in Connecticut, working in a convenience store. That's where this ridiculous legend of me working in a gas station. It's like it's so like it's absolute like fiction. But I
yeah,
did work a convenience store which had gas, as they say in America, gas station. Um,
yep.
so I worked midnight till dawn, and yeah, that's if anything that it taught me a lot of things about a lot of stuff like wow, this is actually really where I am.
Mm,
I without any diplomas or anything, this is the kind of job that I can get in this country. It was a harsh truth and
mm.
made me really respect people that work in those places at that time of day. And I've seen people act really poorly towards people that work in like 7-Elevens at 3 in the morning. And
Oh, definitely.
and it's just like um I don't think I've ever stopped being appreciative of having the job that I do, which is getting to make music. Even at the age I am now, after so many decades, I still feel it's a privilege to do what I do. So
When you're at the convenience store, did you have a guitar under the counter? Were you writing songs? Were you filling in time that way?
I wish, but I'd go home and I'd be so cranked up full of coffee, and I'd be back to my sister's house, and she'd be out working. Her husband would be out working, and I'd be just me and the dog and the cat,
Yeah,
and I'd be so full of caffeine, and so I would sit on my grandma's bed, and that's where I wrote, a lot of those songs that you hear on that first album. Just kind of like come home, that weird sort of like I'm tired, but I'm not tired, and then I'd grab a couple of hours sleep, and then and then I'd have to wake up around I think it was like around 10 p.m. at night,
right.
and get myself sort of sorted, and then ride my bike to work, and it was yeah, it was like night shifts are hell.
I can imagine. Luckily, I haven't been in a situation where I've had to work night shifts unless I'm getting up early for interviews and
Yeah,
stuff like that. But yeah, you really do remember your younger years when you were struggling. But now you're embarking on like a greatest hits, is it, or is it an audience participation tour? Can you describe this tour for
yeah.
me?
So I tried to, pardon me. I did this like in the early 2000s, and it was analog with bits of paper, and the little pencils that you
And did you
get.
write the songs on paper?
Well, I had like a menu, and had it at the door when they came in through the venue,
Yep.
and they'd get this little kind of a voting ballot sort of paper, and one of those tiny little pencils that you get at mini golf,
Yeah.
and like fill it out. And then I'd end up with all these, like a pile of paperwork, with only like 20 minutes before I had to go on stage. It was like, oh my God. That I didn't think about that. That was kind of
Uh,
silly. So fast forward, it's like, you know, 15, 20 years later, I've like said, I want to do it by request. And it was, I wanted people to be able to like pick through my old catalog, bring stuff to the foreground that I haven't played for a while, and share some anecdotes. That's been what I have to say. One of the fun things has been reading the anecdotes from people, because when they get the ticket, they get directed to the playlist, and also this survey Mailchimp thing that where they punch in the songs that they want to hear and why. And so
okay.
the reasons why that's been the goal for me. I just love reading, what stories they have, and some of them are, a little silly, I have to say. But most of them are really like they're really spilling their guts to me, and it's yeah, it's really kind of hard to it's ineffable to explain how that feels for like to hearing what the impact that music has had on their lives, because it sounds like the biggest cliche I know, but I am aware that music has impacted
Mm.
or my music has impacted people. When you read it like that and it's really tangible, it's like, wow, I'm very, very humbled.
Yeah, well, there's definitely, you've gone through so many eras of different kinds of music and as well as fan bases, but I think those core audiences have known you for as long as, like you said, those early days. And that's because of talent, I think, Mark.
Well, thanks. Look, I think I'm carried along by that. It's like if I don't have an audience, it's like it's fun making the stuff. I'm not going to lie. It is fun, and that's what kind of drives me a lot. A lot of it's just like the enjoyment and the kind of the sort of release that it is for me as well.
Yeah.
But at some point, I'm like, this is just, well, now it's on a hard drive, but years ago it was on it was on big pieces of tape. But at some point it has to be shared. It's like, I can't, yeah, I can't imagine like just not like I'm always saying to people, like, if I know they're making stuff, it's like, just get it out, just release it,
Yeah.
like, just don't, like, what's the point of it just living on a hard drive? So yeah, that to me is like being able to have that. It's still super exciting somehow after so many years to like make
It still
something.
pumps you up.
And I mean, these days it's almost kind of like, it's almost like I just I pinch myself, and because I make the music, and then it goes off to get made into a vinyl, and the vinyl arrives back in my house, and I'm playing it downstairs on my um it, it's just like, I can't believe this. I made it up there, now it's down here, and it's been turned into this beautiful vinyl. And the process of cottage industry has like never been, more obvious. It's amazing to me.
Do you ever get any requests like B-side? What happens if you get a B-side or some real rarity that you go, oh no, I don't remember that, or can
Um,
can you adjust?
well, I can, and thankfully,
Not that
I
there's
can.
B-sides anymore, really, but
No, but
there
there
was.
are. I did release, and I still do, like release like EPs and things where there's like songs that are not going to be on the album,
Yeah.
and people get really enamored by certain songs. It's like I don't know why you become enamored with that song, but you have, and it's like okay, well then I will play that song. But I don't know if it's a sad thing, but it is a thing where there are. I think every artist could say that when you make a record, unless you go and play that whole album, like in its entirety on a tour or something, there's songs that you record and you spend a lot of time on that you never play live. You literally never play that song live. It's just like something you made. And when you've got hundreds of songs, it's impossible. So bringing those little lost orphans, into the spotlight is yeah, it's pretty fun, I have to say.
Are they called fillers or are they just songs that you might
Ah,
have
look,
had in the drawer
I
and then
think record companies used to call them fillers, but I've the idea of filler is just like is never been.
it doesn't sound right, doesn't
It's
fit
got to
right.
be all killer for me. All killer, no filler.
Well, there's an old saying. How's that? I remember seeing Midnight Oil, and they did a similar thing years ago, and they were pulling people out of the audience and doing a chocolate wheel
Yeah.
on stage, and that was huge. I got pulled for some reason. I got pulled out of the audience and did the chocolate wheel on stage at the Enmore Theatre. This
Wow.
time I'll be on stage at the Enmore, and I got read about it, so I
Wow.
walked out.
I heard about that tour and I thought, wow. I mean, everyone in the music industry that I heard was just like, wow, that is some real brave thing, because you know there's a lot of songs, and
Oh
at
yeah,
some point, like the band's gonna have to go, okay, I mean, those two guitar players though, they're just they think like one brain, it's ridiculous.
What's coming up? You're in the studio now. Are you working on new music? Are you just fine tuning old songs? What are you up to at the moment?
I've been working since I've did Bootleg Melancholy, and we released that, and I think it was, you know, almost while I was, I wouldn't say while I was mixing and mastering that record, but very soon afterwards, I just started on another record. I do tend to do that. I think maybe through the COVID period, I got used to making records like just one after the other, because that's kind of what I did
Yeah.
with the blues record and then Bootleg Melancholy. So I'm kind of on that pace. But at some point, I just sort of tools down. I usually, yeah, that's a very common trait for me too, is to like do a bunch of stuff and then just like walk away from it, then come
Yeah.
back to it. Um, I like to let it breathe a little bit. And, I do work really fast. Like everyone that works, on stuff with me, they just can't believe how quick I work. But that's just come from, I think the 10,000 hours thing.
Yeah.
Um, and, I'm familiar with my tools, and if I've got the ideas, I'm able to kind of turn them into something tangible quite quickly. Where maybe in the past I was kind of like, oh, I got this idea in my head. Oh, how do I make that? Or experimenting with, like, because I'd gone from being the musician going into a studio with a ship with like full crew on there, an engineer, a producer, an assistant engineer, all doing their part, and you just have sort of basically just play and they
Right.
record and capture it, to being the person that does all of that. I'm a one man, thing. Not unusual now. So many artists produce themselves, and I've become a laptop producer like so many people these days. But yeah, it's still something you need to do a lot of, and I've definitely done. It's probably more like, I don't know, 20,000 hours that I've done now. So yeah, I mean,
That's unbelievable.
and
And
I'm just also very good at, like, if I do something and I'm just like, no, that's not, no, I need to do that again. And it's usually because I don't like the tone, or the part's not quite right. um and years ago that would be like called the demo. So
Yeah.
These days you can just start on something, I feel, and the demo process is part of the whole process. You just go through many different versions of it, maybe along the way to get
Yeah.
there, which is a luxury that we didn't have years ago.
If you weren't a guitarist, performer, singer, doing what you do, what would you be doing? You wouldn't still be working at the convenience store, but what career would you have?
I don't know, I would probably want something that had some reward to it, in a sense of, I do love feeling that I've made people feel better
Yep.
when they come into a room. I'm in it. My energy makes them feel better. It's an exchange. They leave feeling like they forgot about everything for a couple of hours.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't know. Like, the medical world has always been somewhere that I've always really had a lot of respect and awe of people that work in that field. I
Interesting.
think my mum being a nurse might have influenced me. She seemed like a superhuman, a superhero to me
Yeah.
as a small kid. Watching her get ready to go to work and hearing her stories of the hospital and everything was just, you know, and it's in our blood. I think it's in our DNA because there's several people that went into the medical profession in my family. So yeah, maybe something in the medical profession, because I think music is medicine anyway. You know.
Wow, great answer. That's
Yeah.
a really good answer.
I mean,
Yeah, it is.
you've got Gordy who straddles both. She does music and is a doctor. So I totally get that.
And I mean, over the years, music has changed, eras have changed, and we were talking before we started recording about live shows, and back when the vinyls and the punters and collectors and Rat Cat and you guys were all around and just non-stop gigs, one after the other. But it's kind of changed because of
Yeah.
venues. In particular, what do you think of the Australian film industry, Australian music industry at the moment, the state of it, and live venues in general?
Yeah, look, I think somewhere in the mid 90s, when I was living in New York, Tim Friedman, wrote that song "Blow Up the Pokies," and it was,
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's been quoted so many times, but I think that song really captures so much of the emotion and the kind of the feeling of that time. Watching, you know, I mean, the pub culture. People say it's like, well, it was going to change, but the gentrification, it's not just, it's so many factors. You can't just put it on one thing. It's people like, moving into these areas where they're like, yeah, I love music, but I don't
Mm,
want that next to me. I don't want that noise. you
mm.
know Somehow down in Victoria they still manage to kind of have venues and people, next to where people live, and people
Different
just kind of,
culture.
it's a
I
different
find,
culture.
yeah, Melbourne is.
But Sydney got kind of like shut down in so many ways. And every time I drive past the Hope Town, and just see it covered in plywood and just nothing's become of it. And that's 20 something years ago now. It's just like,
Yeah,
it breaks my heart because that was a place where a lot of people got their first gig. Um, Someone like Shane Nicholson, I went and saw when he was just, he'd been just starting out playing on a Monday night there and got me up and we did some songs together, and it just was like, okay, at least we've got one gig that has artists, playing 7 nights a week, every night of the week. A town of like this, how many million people, should have like at least one gig where you can go and do a gig.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's just like, what have we allowed to happen? That's what I can't say. It's like, yeah, I know everyone is just gung ho crazy about the value of real estate and building apartments and blah 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 and growth and gentrification, but it's somehow through all of that in Sydney we've allowed, like, a big part of, when I came to Sydney in '87, people were saying, oh, you guys, it's a shame you came here, it was so much better. And I'm like thinking, whoa, it still seems pretty good. Like, there's lots of gigs here, but it was already on the decline.
yeah.
Things like the Bondi Lifesaver, which I never saw, that was before my time, but there was this echo that was still echoing of like this time that was just incredible in Sydney. It was a place that you could literally just do a crawl on a Tuesday night. You could go and see 10 bands, playing around.
That's right.
That's not an exaggeration, So it's, yeah, it's really, and from that becomes, yeah, it's hard for to imagine, someone coming into the industry now going, okay, well, how do I make this work? Like it's a sad truth that it's less than 1%. It's
Mm.
not even 1%. It's like 0 point something that are able to play live music or just play music in general, make a career out of it without having a day job per se. And that's the reality we're in this country. And I think it's a little sad because per capita, whether people realize this or not, but per capita, this country has produced in the past, and still, I believe now we still make an awful lot of recorded music at least. But if you can't tour it, yeah, that's a problem because it's always been, a place where you can make a record, and then go and play it.
Oh yeah, I'm finding there's still a lot great young talent out there. I mean, and they're putting out a lot of digital stuff and using YouTube and so forth to get their music out, which isn't new. I mean, that's been happening for so long. But it's good to see females too coming
Oh my
through the
God.
ranks. There's
Well,
so many great
let's just say
artists.
someone like Thelma Plum,
Yeah,
if anyone's, gets into the conversation of like, oh, I just don't think, where are all the songwriters these days? Where's the, I'm just like, okay,
they're out
well,
there.
I can rattle off a few, yeah, I mean, I don't think the problem is content. And if anything, there's more stuff. It's almost for me, I feel like, God, there's just, oh, I don't have enough time to listen to all the releases that happen. And
There's so many.
that gives me a little bit of like FOMO and anxiety. Because I've always liked to feel like I'm like keeping up with what's coming out all the time. That's just how I was when I was a kid, and I
Yeah.
haven't stopped feeling that way. Um, I'm a music junkie, so what can I say? And I feel now, yeah, there's just so much like constantly. You could play that game with someone, and I played it with my nephew the other night. It was just like, listen to this, and I'm like, what about this? What about this? Just exchanging stuff, and it's an incredible time for discovery right now.
Yeah, I'll drop a band name, Teen Jesus.
Oh
It's
yeah,
yeah, and the Gene Teasers.
yeah.
They're really good, and
Well, bands now, I mean,
they're kids when they started out.
there's a reason why Turnstile are so like popular. It's just we're kind of living in a time where bands are almost like oh my God, they're a band. Like there's very few bands at the moment. I wouldn't say there's no bands, but it's definitely not a band centric time in music. That could change. It could be all about bands again,
Mm.
in a few years or whatever. But at the moment, yeah, it's almost like a novelty thing. It's like, oh
I think
wow, they're a band.
I think the Metro is still keeping the light on, which is really good for a lot of really good international and Aussie acts. But
Yeah,
there's a few
I
little
mean,
places out there still in Sydney, but in
yeah.
general, I mean Brisbane still have some. There are locations out there, but like you said, not every night of the week in cities there's millions of people.
I did hear that the APRA, with the New South Wales government, I haven't heard the update on this, but a few months ago, I heard stories about um, turning little sections of Sydney into music precincts, you know,
Yeah.
like one in Leichhardt, one in Parramatta. So they're not all just like in the inner city. So they're spread out west and, north, south, just all over the areas. And just
That works.
instead of just like one gig, like a couple of little gigs next to each other with one might be a wine bar that has someone, just solo or duos playing, but it's basically trying to make more areas that have live music and they call them, precincts, like cities in America, like Nashville has that precinct, where it's like a strip of places where you can go. But I mean, having said that, we got to make sure that people are actually, it's monetized for the musician, because I've seen it in other parts of the world where it's like you go in and watch all these people play, and it's really sad because they're not actually making any money. They're doing it because the
Yeah.
venue goes like, okay, well, if you want to play here, you can play there, and we put the jar out for tips, and it's just like, nah, meanwhile, while they're making all the money over the bar, it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not on.
Have you ever disguised yourself and done some busking, in the US or in Australia at any point?
I haven't busked, but I feel like I've done a lot of like performances in schools.
Okay.
When my kids were like, tiny, they get me in to play. And,
Nice.
it'd be pretty funny because in a couple of cases, there would be like an Australian there, teaching or something, and be like, oh my God, it's him, playing like, Octopus's Garden and other kid favorites. It's like that's I've always had to lean heavily into the Ringo songs of the Beatles when I've had to
Sure.
pick songs for little ones. Thank God for Ringo. That's all I can say.
Did you ever think of doing some acting? I mean, at all? Like, were you ever approached to
I've
be an
thought
actor
about it,
or
I
whatever?
think that's a whole craft. It really is. And you know, yeah, I think it's a lot harder than people might think.
Oh, it would be, yeah.
So yeah. Um, Look, if someone sort of threw something my way and it was something the thing that makes me worried is the amount of times I've seen. I think we all can say this. A musician that pops up doing a cameo in a film, and it's like, oh, maybe not. They seem
Yeah.
a bit wooden. There's very few. I think Tom Waits is one of the few that can pull his weight as an actor.
Yeah,
And
he's good.
incredible. So you have to be that good. That's all I can say.
Sting was in a few good movies, I got to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
David Bowie did some cool things.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not, I'm not sure about Mick Jagger playing Ned Kelly. That was
Yeah, well, you know what? Mick Jagger still pops up in movies. He was in a movie a few years ago with Australian actress Elizabeth Debicki, The Burnt Orange Heresy, it was called. No one's
okay.
ever heard of it, but he puts in a really good, performance. So
Okay.
he still pops up in
All
most.
right. Well, I'll have to check that out because I think of the '70s, there was definitely some dodgy things. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, because I know our time's a little bit limited, but I want to know about video clips now. MTV are basically gone now. You had a whole VHS tape of video clips I remember released in the video shop when I used to work in a video shop as a kid.
It was the thing.
It was a thing. Now, what happened to video clips? Or are you still doing them that I
Oh,
don't know
well,
about?
these days I've been making clips with an iPhone.
Ah,
It's so liberating.
yeah,
Um, it's all about the cuts anyway, and thankfully I've got someone. Um, when I say I've got someone, I've been able to utilize someone in the way of getting Blake Fraser, who's an incredibly talented up and coming filmmaker, to chop them up for me, and I still have a lot of fun making them, but it's just like the idea of spending budgets like we used to, of your money essentially. It's the record company pays for it, but it's basically your money because
sure.
you've got to
Yeah.
pay it all back before you see any royalties. It's just crazy. Like, you know, um,
Mhm.
they were fun. I'm not gonna, you know, I can't sit here
That's
and
acting. Basically, it's acting as well.
well, yeah, and I can't sit here and go, I wish we never made those clips, and spend all that money. It was fun, and you know, um, exciting. Miming your song 40,000 times that's not fun.
Oh, I bet.
But seeing the end result was always like, kind of like it was always an exciting thing to like see. Yeah, making the clip for Tip of My Tongue with Claudia Castle here in Australia. That was great, and then making it again with Sam Bayer, who actually did "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by
Yeah.
Nirvana. The record company in America were like, we want to make another clip. Okay. You know, so making
Okay.
that clip twice was weird. That was something that like I don't think will ever happen again for me. But at the time it was just like, why do we have to do this? I like the clip we have already. No, the Americans want their clip with their, director of du jour. And I get it. He was the hot director.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
thought was gonna, get it, instantly played on MTV or whatever. So, you do play the game sort of thing. But if I had my time again, I'd probably, I might say no. I'll be like, no, I've done the clip already. Use that one. I don't know. It's a funny thing.
Mm. Have you got any songs if it comes up on this tour that gets requested that you won't do or can't do? Are there any off limits songs?
Off limits? I don't think there's any off limits, but yeah, I mean,
It's just
it's
just that we're just wondering because someone out there is going to pull something out of a hat that you haven't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I think I've made it kind of I wouldn't say a free for all, but I've given them a lot of scope,
Yep.
and I've encouraged people to like, look, I'm gonna play those songs, so maybe don't waste your choice on a song that I'm gonna play. My big hits that are just omnipresent. go dig deeper a little bit. I do have a lot of singles, so pick something that's not so obvious if you can, because I'm going to play those songs anyway. But if
Yeah.
if it's that's the song that they want because they've got this reason, it's a dedication thing, that's fine. I'm not gonna get all like, righteous on them, and but that it is kind of a case of like I'm encouraging them to go a little bit off piste, as they say in skiing, you
Yeah.
know, and just make it fun and interesting for all of us.
Oh, any show I've ever seen of yours, mate, has been interesting and fun and unpredictable. The set lists are always not the same. So that's what I have experienced over the years.
Thanks. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this situation, I mean, you're going to have people who want those hits and then those rarities. So you'll be prepared for anything. But stories, now you're probably going to tell stories about family and things and songwriting. But you bring up any fellow colleagues and singers and stories about touring? Have you got anything like you can share through friends?
Well,
I mean, you've performed and opened for a lot of good people.
I have. I love talking about Tina because meeting Tina Turner was such a an
I can
incredible
only imagine.
experience. Um, and doing shows with her was, yeah, it was really special knowing that she was listening and watching me do my thing, and then I'd go into a dressing room and say a quick hello, and she was just, yeah, she just felt so genuine and so authentic, and I felt really, really loved and well looked at, like just really wanted. Like I felt like I was really wanted on
Yeah.
those shows. That was an incredible feeling. And so, writing my master plan was actually in my head. I was writing it for Tina.
Okay.
That was kind of my muse and my zeitgeist. Um, Seeing all those shows, um, and when it comes down to it, I was like, I want to record this song. But I did feel like maybe I should try to give it to Tina. It's like it feels like something she might sing. But yeah, so much inspiration from that, and I
Would have
still
been.
I still like when I hear her sing. It's just one of my all time like just favorite voices that it just brings me into place every time. It's like, I'm home. It just brings me home.
Well, she passed not that long ago, so that must
Yeah,
have been a little hard for you.
it was. I really was hard just kind of coming to terms with her not being well. It was just like she seemed like a superhuman to me, and it's a very sobering thing to kind of
Mm.
know that even someone who's taken all the right steps, and it's just so, yeah, it can just like get a really shitty card like that. Really sad.
Well, she also was an accomplished actor, of course. She Mad
Yeah.
Max Beyond Thunderdome, among other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That was probably the best thing about that film. Her and Angry were like great.
Yeah, I've got to say, it doesn't hold up really as well as some of the other Mad Max films have.
No, I think all the kind of tropes had been like really used by that point, but great
Yeah,
song. Great song.
yeah.
No, it's great video.
Oh, yeah. And One for the Living, which she had that, well, we don't need another hero, but the One for the
Yeah.
Living song is what people, not everyone, but people
Yeah.
forget that she had that song in it to open the movie, which is
Yeah. Incredible. It was
yeah.
it was all about Tina.
Well, to finish it off, it's all about you, Mark. In your own words, why should people come and see you? The tour, you're going all around Australia, basically,
Yeah.
and the venues are varied in size. So, what do you think people will get out of your gigs this time around?
Well, look, it's a show that we've taken to quite a few different places now, and it's a very um, kind of interactive show.
Mm.
It's not about just an artist on stage just going, "This is what I'm doing tonight." Cop this. So, I bring people in, and right from the get go, it's like I'm doing songs that people have requested, and I'm shouting their names out, and I'm sharing their anecdote in a truncated version, of course, but
Yeah.
it's all about the crowd. It really is, and I'm just the humble custodian that looks after the songs and gives them on in this case. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the naked, I guess, element of like it's just me up there. But I do have my niece with me on a lot of these dates, and she comes up and sings with me on a few of the songs.
Oh, is that right? Great.
Yeah, she's great. Her name's Violet, or Vo. She goes under the name of Vo,
Okay.
and it's just beautiful seeing it through someone else's eyes who hasn't toured like I have. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really fresh energy that she brings. And having a female voice too is I've always loved duetting with females. So my voice has, definitely got the gravel, and she's got the silk, as I think someone said. So yes, yeah, it's really, really fun. And yeah, just come along. It's a long show. It's not I can't do everything in a really short thing. So like be expecting, like, there's no support. I do both sets and with an intermission, and they get an awful lot of my music. That's all I can say.
Well, I'm a collector, so I reckon you should hand out maybe or reprint some of those posters that were in those teenage magazines back in the day, or a little booklet of some of your old school shots. You
It's
could
funny.
you could sell
Um,
or something.
you've just reminded me that I actually recently got my mum's scrapbooks digitized,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
that was a real process. They had to like use this proper camera and everything, and before they just disintegrate. And at the time, I said, Mom, please don't do that. I wasn't awfully proud of being in those magazines. It was not where I imagined myself to
Fair
be.
enough. Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to be in this. I'm a muso. Just want to make music. This is not.
Your mum was proud.
She was, and for a mother, I can only imagine what it was like seeing her son's face all over the newsstands. So she made friends with the local newsagent, and they would give her everything. They would save it, I think, until it became sale or return. They would stash a few so she wouldn't have to like spend any money, which I
That's
think
great.
is so sweet. And they would save it all up for her, and they go, here you are, Terry. Um,
That's nice.
and so she put these colossal scrapbooks together, and so we've digitized them and recently, and now we've been doing some posts and sharing it with people on socials. And yeah, it's a great way to kind of bring back bring nostalgia, I guess, to a lot of people, but also to kind of put context on, when you've been around as long as I have. It's like, well, this is, part of my journey. It really is.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, mate. Really nice to meet you, Mark.
Thank you.
We've never crossed paths, which is a bit of a surprise because I've spoken to many of your colleagues over the years.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on your pod.
No worries. I'll just